What if I told you that the best place to look for extraterrestrial civilizations, or at least the products of extraterrestrial civilizations, is not in deep space, nor is it in our atmosphere, nor would it be orbiting one of the planets in our solar system? What if I told you instead that these objects are orbiting our planet right under our very noses? Hundreds, if not thousands of them, at this very moment, unrecognized and unnoticed, blending in with all of our space debris and all of our satellites, are the products of extraterrestrial civilizations that have been there for as long as we have been watching the sky. What if I told you that they've been watching us all along, and we've never really understood it until now? Well, believe it or not, this is what Dr. Beatriz Villarroel and her team at VASCO have discovered in recent months. Evidence that has yet to be refuted that hundreds, if not thousands, of objects have been orbiting our planet for decades, right under our noses, blending in with our technology, even before the time that we launch satellites into orbit. These objects have been there, and they have the photographic proof from the Mount Palomar Observatory to prove it. And not only do they have the evidence, it also seems that these objects have appeared at very important times in our history, in conjunction with nuclear weapons tests, or in conjunction with some of the most famous mass UFO sightings in human history. And I have been given the opportunity to interview Dr. Beatriz Villarroel in her home country of Sweden at her generous invitation. And to my knowledge, this is the first time, at least on YouTube, that a face-to-face interview has been conducted with Dr. Villarroel in her home country. I can't wait to bring you all of the details, and so it's coming at you right now. Good evening, and welcome to a very special Angry Alien Bulletin. We have the opportunity, some of you may recall, that I interviewed Dr. Beatriz Villarroel previously, but never have I done it face-to-face at her own workplace. This is an amazing opportunity. I'm so appreciative. Doctor, would you be so kind just to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Hello, so my name is Beatriz Villarroel, and I'm a Swedish astronomer, and I work here at the Nordic Institute for Theoretical Physics that belongs to Stockholm University here in Sweden. And well, I'm an astronomer, and I am specialized now lately in looking for non-human artifacts near the Earth. I've been working with a lot of topics, but this is the stuff I've been working on in the last years, and I think that's a fascinating work area that got far too little attention from the astronomy community so far.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. So, of course, since most astronomers are concerned about pursuing that particular field of research, what led you to want to pursue this? I mean, is this something that you were looking at from the beginning when you were looking for disappearing stars with your first research, or is this something that developed over time?
It developed over time because when I was working with my disappearing stars, I was interested in if a star could potentially collapse into a black hole. I was interested in technosignatures far away. Let's say if you have some super civilization, some Kardashev 3 or 4 civilization that could eat up a star or something like that. I was interested in SETI, but I never thought about UFOs. I had a bias myself against UFOs at that time, and I was just curious about the super advanced Kardashev 3 and 4 civilizations and what they could do. And so when we were working with these disappearing stars, that's what I was interested in. I wanted to find a star that was there, let's say 100 years ago, and today have vanished.
For those of you who are curious as to what Dr. Villarroel is talking about, Kardashev-level civilizations was a scale created by a Dr. Kardashev many decades ago, talking about the potential of extraterrestrial civilizations harnessing the power of their own sun. A Kardashev level 1 civilization would be a civilization that harnesses all of the solar energy that strikes their planet, which is an enormous amount of power. Kardashev level 2 harnesses all of the power of their own star, surrounding the star with trillions of little solar collectors that could obscure the star from our view. A Kardashev level 3 civilization consumes all the energy of the stars of an entire galaxy. So we've spoken before about the discoveries that you made in regards to the transiting objects in the Mount Palomar plates, and the triple transient, for example, is one of the most amazing discoveries. All of these things that at least at the time of our last discussion, you hadn't really found any sort of natural explanations for what you found in the Palomar plates. Since that time, what has happened with your research? Have you uncovered possible natural explanations, or if not, have you thought about artificial ones?
Wow, a lot has happened actually in this last year. When we were working with like the triple transient and all these individual examples, we were working really with candidate examples. What we have learned in the last year is that there is some hundreds of thousands of these transients on the photographic plates. There are lots of them that have been confused with plate defects over the last 100 years. And they look like stars because they are transients, they are these kind of light flashes. And at the same time, some of them correlate with nuclear bomb tests, others correlate with UFO sightings, and there's a serious deficit of them in the Earth's shadow, which means that they are highly reflective objects. So no, that's no plate defects, no matter how many elderly astronomers want to say that this is plate defects, because they've been assuming that whenever they work on this. Something that reflects the sunlight is going to vanish in the Earth's shadow, which means that these are orbiting objects that are highly reflective and very flat.
So very flat. That kind of sounds like as was described back in the 1950s when these things were first being talked about. Dinner plates, saucers, whatever you want to discuss. So you're saying thousands. Now, there's one question that I've wondered about. You see these transients in one plate, right? And then 90 minutes later, once the Earth is set, once an orbiting object would have a chance to go around the Earth once it goes. Have you seen any that appeared in 2 consecutive plates, as if they maintained their orbit for a while and then left, or they always vanish after one?
They always vanish after one, because we have been explicitly looking for things that are seen in multiple places because we wanted to find these vanishing stars, and we never found those, but we found all these transients. And we have some 107,000 transients. It of course includes many false positives, but to work with just from the northern hemisphere. So we are talking about some tens of thousands to 100,000 objects orbiting the Earth in the 50s.
Thousands of objects orbiting the Earth that can't be accounted for, or not dozens, not hundreds. It's astonishing that you've been able to find that many. And also, some of them have been traveling in formation. Can you give me some information on that?
Well, we have this example of 5 transients in a very narrow band from the 27th of July, 1952. And I don't know if I should call it alignment, because they are not perfectly on a line. They are aligned in a narrow band. And the probability to get this kind of formation in that image with this number of transients is 1 in 10,000. And it happens to coincide with the most famous UFO mass sighting over Washington in 1952. And then it turned out that the triple transient that we also found was from the previous weekend. And another candidate of these 5, because when we were looking for aligned transients, we did this in 2022. We put up a first draft that never was published. It's published now with a lot of changes and with this Earth shadow test. But we found like 5 candidates, 2 that were highly statistically significant, 3 that were weakish. And among the 3 weak ones, there's also another one from 1954, one day after before or after, I don't remember, but within one day from the peak of the 1954 UFO wave. Again, a coincidence. And these findings were made before we ever thought about coincidence in time with UFOs. I had never heard about the Washington flap when we had written that paper already.
Now, in terms of connections, you'd mentioned nuclear bomb tests. What led you to want to explore that possibility, and what were the results? I mean, how obvious is the connection?
This is the idea of my colleague Stephen Brule, who works at Vanderbilt University. He has been leading the study where we've been looking for connections in time with nuclear bomb tests and with UFOs. And he has seen this 68% increase of the number of transients within a day from that one blows off a nuke in the upper atmosphere. And it's the same thing with the UFOs. You see an increase in connection with that you have a UFO sighting. And if you combine the nukes and UFOs that you say that you have had both UFOs and nukes in the same day, then you see the biggest increase in the number of transients. So, of course, we are limited because we have big distances between the nuclear bomb tests and the observatory, and one wants to know, does that affect something? Maybe there are even stronger correlations, just that we're missing out a lot of stuff because we have many false positives, maybe in the UFO sample, but also we don't have a completeness when it comes to the nuke tests, maybe. Right. There are many unknown ones, and also with the transients, we also have false positives that we still need to clean out.
Tell me about the false positives. You mentioned that a couple of times now. What constitutes a false positive in the transients that you found?
For example, you can have sometimes something looks like a transient, but it only is a result of that you have slight differences in depth in the images. And that's, of course, not a real transient. That's just a artifact of the procedure when you extract the transients. You can also have plate defects, especially close to the edges of the plate. And you have to remove them as well. So you might also have some fingerprint or something like that ended up on the plate. And because you use a fully automated method, you by mistake also include these things. So we haven't cleaned up this sample from all these false positives. It's a lot of work, and you also want to be careful that you don't introduce a bias when you clean it up.
So you're saying now that there are literally thousands. I mean, before we were looking at dozens, maybe hundreds, that sort of thing. Now the numbers continue to increase dramatically. Are you thinking that perhaps these might have been the same objects that we're seeing over and over again in different orbital paths over time, rather than there being thousands of objects out there at that time? Or do you think that there were literally thousands of unidentified objects in orbit during that time period?
I'll be honest, I think that it was probably the latter, that we have some tens of thousands to some 100,000 of reflective objects around the Earth. That's my guess. Of course, when you have these flashes, it could be that one object gives several flashes, but we could also underestimate strongly the real number of objects. So you have both these huge uncertainties going, like one pushing the factor, one pushing it up, the number, and the other reducing it. So this is my guesstimate, this tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of objects. And we can only get these flashes rather than streaks if you have something that is super flat and, highly reflective. Because if you would have, let's say, something that is natural, a round object, an asteroid, or even an elongated asteroid, you are not going to get these on and off flashes. You will get these streaks rather. So that's why it gets so interesting. Now, we can't say with certainty at which altitude it is, but I can say that we do see a deficit when we look at, let's say, 42,000 kilometers altitude in the shadow there. Because you know that the shadow is something like 8.7 degrees in radius, and you can look inside this circle and you see the deficit of these transients when there should be many more of them there. And you say, okay, so it's something really reflecting the sunlight there. So if this deficit is something like one third of the transients are missing, And that kind of corresponds to how big fraction of the transients that are due to these highly reflective objects. And now we have 107,000 transients. This translates to something around 35,000 transients in the northern hemisphere only. And I assume it's going to be isotropic, the same in both directions. So it's fun.
It's truly astonishing. I mean, it stretches the limits of imagination in many cases to think that there might have been that many objects that were not of human manufacture flitting about in orbit during that time period. So as time here's one thing that a question that I have: the triple transient. Just for fun, I asked an AI as to, let's say that we had engines in operation that were as bright as the Saturn V, and let's say that these were 3 approaching objects using a burning thrust as they were coming in, and with a similar brightness to the Saturn V. How far away would they have to be in order to have that similar brightness? And the answer came back at about 8,000 kilometers. Is it possible that with some of these things we are actually seeing engines burn rather than reflectivity?
Yes, absolutely. Because this 1/3 of the transients that I mentioned is just for those that are reflective, but it's also possible that some of the objects we're looking at are not reflective, but they are having their own emission. And I can't say from just this one single point source which it is. I can tell about the patterns in the statistics and the systematics we see for the transients, but I can't say about an individual object, whether that is whether its light comes from reflecting the sunlight or whether it's having its own power source. And we see the engines. So it could be.
Okay, so we've also briefly today, we talked about the notion that these transients actually haven't disappeared since the 50s, since the time that we've started to put our own satellites up, and it might be a little bit more difficult to distinguish between our satellites and our space junk and stuff that might belong to someone else. How have you, first of all, how do you identify things that belong to, that are neither active satellites nor our space junk? How can you possibly differentiate that? And have you carried out like a study through the 60s, through the 70s, that sort of thing, to see if the transients remained there, or have you not gotten to that point yet?
We haven't gotten there yet. We want to do it. We want to actually look at all these catalogs from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and just see how many of these transients you can see in these different photographic plates from different observatories, because we also don't know if what we see in Palomar is going to be seen at observatories everywhere on the planet. Maybe Palomar was also a special place. We have, for example, the sightings from George Adamski happened at Mount Palomar in those times. What if this same result is not reproduced at every observatory, if there's local differences? I don't know that. Another thing I would really be happy to do is, let's say if someone has this list of uncorrelated tracks or targets, as one calls them, I heard both names, maybe one can see how many of those that are actually vanishing in the Earth's shadow, if they have those lists from the early 60s. That would be very interesting, because I know that these lists should exist, even from the 60s. So I'm wondering how much of these transients that we're looking at actually connect to these uncorrelated tracks. Is it the same phenomena we are seeing, just with a different name, or is it something totally different? I don't know. I hope to find out. So it would be cool to check like if there are more of them, if they have changed the numbers in time. If I look at the number of transients we see in the photographic plates now, it's something like 1.1 transient per hour per square degree. If you look today at these transient surveys that are looking for similar type of flashes, they have something like 1.7 or 1.8 transients per square degree per hour, which is a little bit more, but not that much dramatically more. So then, of course, my thought is like, could it be so that many of these objects that people today, or many of these flashes that people see on the sky today and assume, oh, it's our space trash, actually isn't ours? That's something I'm wondering, and I would like to know.
So tell me, doctor, let's say that you were working in a perfect world and you have unlimited funding. How would you go about finding out for certain that these transients that we are finding in orbit now, is there a way to solidly identify them as being space trash or not? Do we have to go up and actually get very close to them? If so, how do we do that? Do you have a mission in mind to do that?
Wouldn't it be nice if one actually sends up a rocket there and does imaging at these different altitudes and tries to really get close pictures of the space trash, but also take it down to Earth? Because maybe what you will discover there is that there's a lot of micrometeorite holes that are indicative of that the objects have been there more than 20 years. Maybe some of them have been hit by so many dust particles and micrometeorites that you will be able to say, oh, this object that is artificial has actually been here for at least 500 years. And that's when it gets interesting. So yeah, I think we should make a space mission and take it down. Then, of course, when we talk about artificial objects, I cannot say that it's another civilization that sent it there. I cannot claim any origin. It could be anything. One can't exclude that there were some past civilization, human civilization on the Earth that we just have forgotten about, that maybe sent up some stuff in orbit. So maybe it's ours, just that we forgot it. I have no idea. But it would be nice to get some data that tells us how old these objects actually are. And I think for that we need to really send up something there, either take very close images, go there and bug the stuff, like maybe at a meter's distance, or take it down here. Well, if those are actually probes and it's intelligent probes, and maybe they will not want to come down to the Earth with us.
Right.
But it still would be fun to try.
A lot of folks, I don't think, fully appreciate that this isn't just you, that you have quite a sizable team that works with you on all of this. Please, it's VASCO, right? Is that okay? Please tell us about VASCO, the people who make it up. What sort of folks are we looking at here? What do they all do to contribute to this project?
There have been lots of people contributing to the project in different ways. We have, for example, Enrique Solano, who has been doing this automated analysis. He's not a UFO fan. He's a really traditional astronomer. He has this real skills in how to work with databases and large imaging surveys. So he has been extracting the transients. He has developed a method to extract all the transients automatically. And he produced these beautiful samples and papers on how to get the VASCO transients. Then we have this team of that built what's called Citizen Science website, and that is an IT team at Uppsala University, led by Christian Pelkmans, and they created this beautiful interface for the Citizen Science project, where we have done the same thing, just manually. And then we have the Algerian team with our Algerian collaborators at Constantine University, and Dr. Jamal Mimouni and Hisham Gorgouri, who have been leading this citizen science work. They have been analyzing the images that came in from the citizen scientists, and there are thousands of citizen scientists who also are helping and looking at the images, and some thousands of transients were also found there. I would say that it's, of course, much more efficient to do with automated analysis, sure. But we develop both methods in parallel. Then we also work with an astronomer called Stefan Geyer in La Palma, okay. In Canary Islands, and he's a support astronomer, so he has been doing follow-up observations for us. And we also work with Alina Srebrjanska, who is expert in all kind of astronomical analysis. She has been doing lots of beautiful work for the project, and Dr. Jeff Marcy has also been helping a lot with reading through and giving feedback. And these are just a few of the people that are involved. Stephen Bruel, who is a new collaborator, but we've been doing lots of work lately with this shadow, and he did this beautiful work with UFOs and nukes. So it's a project, it's a team, and there are a lot of people who are contributing greatly and immensely to looking at the transients and selecting them and analyzing them. So it's a real teamwork.
So if I was a member of this team, I would definitely be quite excited about the work if I'm thinking about what would be going through my mind. So that being the case, I'm sure loads of theories have been swirling, about what you folks are actually finding. So that being the case, do you think, and you may not know, but do you think that the majority of people who are engaged in this believe that we are actually looking at the products of an extraterrestrial civilization or a past civilization? Or do you think the majority of them don't know and they haven't come to any sorts of conclusions?
More the latter. I think I am the crazy one. So I think I'm the more crazy one, because I really like to work with like forming hypotheses and testing hypotheses and developing tests in this way. But some, yes, I think that it's technosignatures we're watching. I'm not going to name any.
Sure.
Some might think, oh, this may be something astrophysical. Some are just super curious and they want to see where it leads. They are open for everything. And I think that's something that is typical of the VASCO people that I work with, that they are very open-minded. They are open for the possibilities of that it's UFOs, but they're also open for that it might be something else. And that's the way how we should be in science. We can bet on a hypothesis, but maybe in 2 years it turns out to be wrong. And then we need to update ourselves and just go on further and explore what can it be? What's the real answer?
So the beginnings of your findings came out years ago, and of course you've released many peer-reviewed papers since then. And up to this point, to my knowledge, no one has been able to come up with any sort of viable natural explanation for what your team has discovered. What sort of vibes, what sort of response are you getting from the rest of the astronomical community about this in terms of, is there interest? Are they saying, wow, you've discovered something intriguing here? At least from some of them, are they reacting that way?
Some yes, and others want to say that it's plate defects, because there was this paper published in 24 where some astronomers tried to take a look only at the 9 transients, not at the other cases. The 9 transients was also our weakest case because it was the first we found. We said, hey, could it be like, is this contamination or is it real? And then we started developing tests to search for more high confidence candidates. But they took a look at the 9 transients only, and then they made an analysis, and we found some flaws in their analysis, so we posted a reply to it. And they wanted to say that it's plate defects, but that was from one example, like of 9 transits from one single photographic plate. And they now try to extrapolate the same reasoning for all the 107,000 transients, which come from 635 plates, which is a big generalization. And then my question is, okay, so if these are plate defects, why do they vanish in the Earth's shadow? And there is no answer.
Right.
And that's what happens, is that people try to dismiss it as plate defects, and many astronomers try to do that, but they have no answers to the visit in the Earth's shadow, because that actually rules out plate defects.
Right.
It doesn't rule it out for, let's say, an individual example, because you still can have a single transient or a single group of transients can still be plate defects. But it rules it out for 100% of the sample, because we know that 1/3 of them cannot be, because plate defects have no reason to hide from the Earth's shadow. And, well, some astronomers still, they just close their eyes and try to say, no, it has to be. It has to be.
Right. And again, just to explain to the viewers, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the idea is that if they were plate defects, then they should show up just as commonly in an area that's being affected by the Earth's shadow, darkened, whatever, by the Earth's shadow, as they appear outside the Earth's shadow. And yet objects actually in orbit, reflective objects in orbit, should disappear in the Earth's shadow. And that's what you're finding, right,
Exactly.
with these things. They're behaving like real objects in orbit, not plate defects.
Exactly. So what I think is actually happening is that some of these transients are plate defects, some of them are something that emits light, but 1/3 of them are highly reflective objects that are very flat. And that's where it gets interesting.
So where do we go next, Doctor? What is the next thing you want to do? The next project, the next thing, the next paper you want to write?
So I very much want to do this kind of exercise but look at all different kind of altitudes. I also would like to do the same exercise with our ExoProbe project, which is another one where we don't work with photographic plates, but where we have telescopes or we have one telescope in place, another I hope to get quite soon, and so that I can triangulate and get the altitude. And if we would actually have the altitude of these objects and see where is the highest density, where do you get the biggest deficit, and so on, maybe we will be able to somehow correlate or connect the results from this modern survey to the old VASCO survey and try to see where are they actually located, most of them. Because maybe we are guessing on this 42,000, but maybe there are many more around 60,000 kilometers altitude. Where are they? And then I really would like to get the actual real physical samples. I mean, that's the goal. I know it's not astronomy to sit and analyze a real physical sample, but there are other scientists who can help with that. I just want to get the best possible data we can.
Well, if I may be so bold, I have many contacts in the space garbage disposal field. I do indeed. And so I would be happy to put you in touch with them to discuss the possibility of sending a vehicle up to check one of these objects out for you. Be happy to do it. Doctor, thank you so much for your time today. What a fantastic experience. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come out and visit you here in Stockholm. Thank you.